After watching a show where the protagonist was unfazed by the primary conflict, it was a breath of fresh air to start a show with, here's the conflict, here's a sense that the protagonist doesn't like it. Having read the manga, I knew to expect something fun and light-hearted from Tomo-chan is a Girl, but it somehow managed to provide so much more than that, and has proven to me that I do still like these kinds of shows, after Angel Next Door and especially Kubo-san had me questioning myself. That's not to say that Tomo-chan is a perfect show. Unfortunately, the story begins with one of the cardinal sins of anime, obnoxiously over-delivered exposition. There's a rule in writing called show don't tell, but Tomo-chan seems unwilling to trust its audience to decipher the visuals, and as such, does both. Did we really need to be told that Tomo and Jun live next to each other when they're standing outside their respective houses? Was it really so important that the punch Tomo gives to Jun in this scene be explained as karate, and not just left up to speculation until we see her train for the first time? Did Misuzu really need to start her thought with the phrase, as someone who has been friends with you for years, right before lamenting Tomo's behaviour in kindergarten? But then we get the absolute peak of this madness, a masterful demonstration of introducing a pre-existing dynamic with nothing but visuals and carefully chosen dialogue, followed by a clumsy exposition declaration that undoes all of it. I'm talking about the scene where we first see Misuzu interact with Jun. The blue lines and facial expressions aren't at all subtle, but they convey just fine that there is tension between these two. Then there's the fact that Jun addresses Misuzu by her last name, while Misuzu addresses Jun by his full first name, telling us in just 2 words what the power dynamic is like between these two. It's almost a perfect introduction to their dynamic, until Tomo laments to herself that they don't get along. Oh really, Tomo-chan the anime? You needed to verbally clarify that this is an uncomfortable dynamic. Exposition like this is the equivalent of explaining a joke. It takes something good and robs it of all its value. Luckily, this dreadful exposition pulls a love is war and disappears after episode 1. What doesn't go away is the sense of humour. It's rare to find a show that can make me smile with amusement, but Tomo-chan pulls it off with pretty decent regularity. I always get a smile out of any scene where Misuzu messes with Jun and gets some kind of consequence for it, or when Kosuke is admiring Tomo's karate skills moments before getting his ass beaten. And then episode 2 goes hard on the comedy, so much so that I wrote a list of the scenes that made me exhale through my nose at the very least. Jun walking into a pole while trying not to look at Tomo. For starters, put down the dumbbell. Carol calling Tomo Baka wasn't funny, but Misuzu calling her Baka after figuring out why was. Misuzu being tempted by cake, Carol punching Jun in the face. All these moments in a single episode brought a smile to my face. Hell, for starters, put down the dumbbell actually made me laugh out loud. But it's not just the comedy that draws me in. Every character in the main cast has a depth to them that creators of lesser shows don't bother with. And keep in mind, this is still within the first 3 episodes. Tomo could have easily been a stock tomboy type with zero restraint, but outside of her confrontational relationship with Jun, she's actually rather responsible and reasonable. I think of course of the scene where Mifune and Ogawa accidentally challenge Tomo to a fight. While Tomo is willing to throw down, she acknowledges that she'll be holding back, and then as soon as she realizes they don't want to fight, just talk to her about a boy they like, she drops the fighting stance and becomes ecstatic. Sure, she hurts people, even people who don't deserve it, but she often does so out of impulse and regrets it afterwards. Misuzu may seem like a stock monotone deadpan girl, but she's got some layers to her. A sense of pride she takes seriously, a loyalty to Tomo that leads her to threaten others, a possessive attitude towards the drama between Tomo and Jun. Even Carol, who was only introduced in episode 2, has a little depth to her. Just a brief montage of her being rejected when trying to make friends shows us that beyond being a typical airhead, she's vulnerable and scared of social rejection. That 10 seconds gives her more characterization than Kubo and Amane combined. The most interesting character in my eyes is Jun. The whole conflict of the show is that Tomo has a crush on Jun, but Jun doesn't see her as a girl. Tomo wants to change herself so that she can be more ladylike and appealing, but we get some hints fairly early on that her assumptions aren't entirely accurate. From episode 1, we see that Misuzu can get under Jun's skin by bringing up Tomo and whether she might find a boyfriend or whether he wants to get intimate with her. A slight moment where Jun takes a deep breath before inviting Tomo to lunch suggests that his overly chummy attitude towards her acts partially as a defense mechanism. And anytime her femininity is front and center, like when he can see the outline of her bra, when he sees her underwear, or when he sees her hanging out with Kosuke, his attitude changes entirely. You may have been interested to hear me bring up some of those scenes in a positive light. Is Big Joe really pointing out fan service as a positive? And sort of. I'd still argue that it isn't strictly necessary. And let me be clear, any fan service involving Carol is just vapid and gross. But I can let Tomo's fan service slide for 2 reasons. 1, it doesn't degrade her. The bra outline in episode 1 isn't as prominent as it would be in a show like Dress Up Darling, and the panty shot is hidden from the audience entirely. And 2, it actually has some bearing on the story and themes. Tomo wants to be seen as a woman, and these are moments where she technically succeeds. Fan service in most shows are there for the sake of it. Mashiro from Pet Girl of Sakaroso doesn't sleep naked because it serves the plot or themes of the show. She does it so that we can get fan service scenes where the protagonist walks in on her. While I would still argue that Tomo-chan would be no worse without it, I can at least concede that it serves a purpose beyond let's perv on this character. I want to return to something I said in my Red Hot Go for Kubo-san, about what romance or slice of life needs to provide for me to be invested. Conflict, progression, or characters that I care about. Tomo-chan has its conflict made clear from the very first scene, and shock horror, Tomo herself is actually invested in overcoming that conflict. Progression is a little lighter here. I could say I know it's coming because I read the manga, but that wouldn't be fair given what I said about Kubo-san's progression, also knowing from the source material that progression would come eventually. I suppose all I can say about Tomo-chan for the time being is that we've seen that progression is possible by exposing Jun's weak points when it comes to Tomo. And then we get to the last point, characters I care about. As I discussed before, Tomo-chan has made an effort to flesh out its main cast at least a little bit within the first 3 episodes. We come away understanding who these characters are and how they differ from their typical archetypes, which is more than I can say for most shows in this genre. So while Tomo-chan had a rocky start in episode 1, it eventually comes out swinging with fleshed out characters, a strong core conflict with a little bit of nuance, and a sense of humour that had me grinning ear to ear. From Ice Cold to Red Hot, I give Tomo-chan Is a Girl a rating of boiling. Can't wait to see how this show continues. I'd like to thank my patrons, Orion Tran, Lars Espen, Data52, Gemen5, Pixcalibur, Tyler Bennett, Temka, Jeremy Bashik, Fireclaw, Chris, Luke Stewart, Swiss Cage, Gerald, John, the Mini Turtle, and the Blue Crystal 770. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.